Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head back over to Germany and we're going to revisit one of the classic Munich brew houses today. So for this one we're going to go to Hofbräu München and we're having a taste of the Hofbräu Dunkel. And this is a kind of beer style that really has come back into my favourites recently. This started when Peter, the clueless drinker, did his review of the Augustiner Dunkel, and of course I brought one back from Munich with me when I was over there with my cousin earlier in the year. And I saw this one in one of my local shops and I thought, you know, I really want to give this a go and see how it comes across, because I don't think I've actually tried this one. I think when I was in Munich it was the Helles we were drinking at Hofbräu, and so really looking forward to this one. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. I always love reviewing these kind of classic German beers. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, of course, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hofbräu München before. No doubt there will be some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there, of course, for all the German beers that I've reviewed for you. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Hofbräu then. So Hofbräu was founded back in 1589 by Wilhelm V, the Duke of Bavaria, but he didn't much like the beer that was already being brewed in Munich at the time, and so two of his advisors recommended that he start his own brewery, and for this task he hired brewmaster Heimer Pongratz of the Geisenfeld monastery to plan, build and operate the brewery. So Wilhelm's son Maximilian I was much more a fan of Weiss beer rather than the brown beers that were popular at the time. So in 1602 he banned all other breweries from brewing this style and basically created a monopoly for his Ducal brewery. But the Weiss beer proved to be really popular, and so the brewery had to relocate in 1607 to the Praxel, and in 1610 sales were finally permitted to private businesses to actually sell these beers. So Pongratz's successor at the brewery was Elias Pichler, and he created the first Maibock in 1614 using the Einbeck method, and apparently he paid the Swedish army 344 pails of this beer, which prevented them from plundering the city during the 30 Years' War. So in 1810 King Maximilian I Joseph threw a huge wedding party for his son Ludwig and his wife Teresa, and this included a huge feast, lots of beer taverns with specially brewed beers and things like this, and this was repeated every year and became what is now known as Oktoberfest. So in 1828 Hofbräu opened their first tavern, and Ludwig apparently kept a close eye on the prices of the beer so that all citizens of the city could enjoy the beer. And because the beer was so popular, the company had to officially register their logos as trademarks in 1879. So in 1896 the brewery had to expand, and so a new brewery was to be built above the storage cellars on the Inner Weinestrasse in the city, and the old building on the Praxel became the first Hofbräuhaus, and it opened in September of 1897. During the Second World War though, the brewery suffered heavy damage due to the Allied bombing campaigns, of course, so only a small part of it was still in working order at the end of the war in 1945. Several tankers though survived, having been safely stored underground and things like this, but the Oktoberfest actually took place once again in 1949, and in 1950 this was the first time that the mayor personally tapped the first keg of beer to open the festival, and I think this was also the first time that Hofbräu had the opening keg of the festival, which was pretty cool. But over the following years the building on the Praxel was restored by Valentin Emmert, and it was finally completed in 1958 in time for Munich's 800th anniversary. So in 1972 they inaugurated their famous 50,000 square foot tent at the Munich Beer Festival, and then in 1988 they built a new brewery on the outside of the city which could produce 6.6 million gallons of beer per year, and this was later extended again in 1995. I'm not sure what the exact capacity of it is at the moment, but over the following years many Hofbräuhaus locations have popped up all across the world, and the brewery does continue to expand its capacity. But the original Hofbräuhaus celebrated its 100th anniversary in 1997, and the original site is also home to the statue, the famous statue actually, of Julius the Brewer, which returned in 2008 after it had been destroyed during the Second World War, and this was part of the celebrations for the 400 years of beer culture on the Praxel Square. So Hofbräuhaus, of course, I think apart outside of Paul Lanner, I think these guys might be the biggest brewery by volume in Munich. Of course, it's the traditional that the 8 original breweries of Munich are the ones who brew the Oktoberfest beer, but these guys actually have quite a fair range of beers. So they've got the original, which is the The Helles beer, they've got this guy, which is the Dunkel, there's the Weisse, the Schwarzweisse, the Maibock, the Munich'S, and also their Oktoberfest beer. And I believe the only one I have ever reviewed for you on the channel is the Oktoberfest beer, so I will try and review some of the other ones over the coming videos and things. But that's all you need to know about the brewery for just now. Let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So this one, as I mentioned to you, is a 5.5% Dunkel. I think I actually didn't mention the alcohol content of this one at the start, but yeah, it comes in at 5.5%, and it's a traditional German or Munich Dunkel style beer. So I'll just have a look at the artwork on that. There you can see, I think that's the Hofbräuhaus on the Pratzel that's actually on the front of this, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I always like that with Hofbräu, how they have these old Munich buildings, and there you can see the Hofbräu crown. That of course is on this little top label as well, and it is on the bottle cap, and it just tells you a little bit on the back. It does have one of these things from the European Union on the back that says it's the Münchner beer, and of course that is one of the items that you get in the European Union that is territorially protected, kind of like Pilsner beer, and I think it's the Budweiser beer, and also like Scotch whisky and things like that. Although the Scotch whisky one, that's a bit edgy right now, but yeah, we'll see. So yeah, without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. Really looking forward to this. Yeah, nice smoky opening then, and we'll get it out and into the glass. I will point out, by the way, that normally in Germany you would drink this beer out of a stein with a handle on it. But unfortunately I don't have one of those with me at the moment, so I'm going to go for the tulip glass. The tulip glass, this one has a little bit of thickness to it, so it does kind of encourage the sort of sessioning that you would expect from one of these kind of Stein mugs. But the tulip glass is always a fairly good all-rounder for aroma and things like that. That's why I use it in most of my videos. But as you can see, this beer has pretty much poured what you'd expect. If I hold it over to the light here, it's got a nice kind of reddish mahogany colour to it. It's maybe a little bit, it's not quite rosewoody, I'd say it's more of a kind of nice mahogany colour that comes out of this one. There's a solid kind of half finger of a frothy, kind of creamy beige head coming out of this one. You can really smell some of these lovely kind of brown bready and caramelly biscuit notes coming out of this beer. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it does look exactly like what you would expect from a Münchner Dunkel beer. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Yeah. You know, I've said it in many of my videos, one of the things I always love about German beer is the noble hops. You always get this lovely, slight, just very slight earthy sweetness to it, and the floral character and the grassy notes that you get out of the German noble hops, the Tettnanger, the Hallertau, and all of these sorts of things. It's just lovely, and you can really pick that up in this beer. And as I said, the Dunkel beer is one that has come back into my life quite prominently recently, and that's thanks to Peter over at the Clueless Drinker, of course. I really love the German Dunkel style. But yeah, it's really nice. So with this one actually to me smells really quite biscuity. There's a lot of biscuity and slightly caramelly sweetness coming out. It's a little bit toasted brown sugar as well, I would say, and you can smell a little bit of that almost cereally note coming out of it. Just a little bit of that kind of cereally grainy character, but mainly it's a biscuity sweetness for me. Some nice brown bread just backing up a little bit of caramel, quite a little bit toasted as well. You can pick up that sort of earthy, that quite sweet earthy note from the noble hops. And there's a wee bit of floral character there as well. It does, for me, in terms of the hops, it does lean a little bit more towards the earthy side of things, but you can pick up a little bit of that grassy note as well. But it does smell really quite nice, this one. There's a wee kind of touch of a red fruity note as well coming out of it. Just a little bit of a kind of candied red fruit ester. Not too much though, you will only get a little bit of that in the Dunkel beer. But it does smell really damn good. Yeah. So as I always say, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But we're going to try this one now. So this one is the Hofbräu Dunkel from Hofbräu München in Munich, Bavaria, Germany. Let's get stuck in. Prost! Yeah, really damn good beer. So yeah, one of the things I should always say about this, if you're a big craft beer nerd and into big hoppy IPAs and things like that, that's not at all what you're going to get from this beer. You know, I love German traditional beer, and the thing that's great about them is that they are so sessionable. The Helles and the Dunkel are just great beers. You can, you know, in terms of sessionability, it's very difficult to beat these guys, apart from potentially, you know, a sort of Pilsner beer like Pilsner Urquell or something like that, but the Munich breweries do. Really, the Helles beers are just that little bit more malty and bready, I think. But this is, you know, this is a really, really good beer. The Dunkel and the Helles beers are just amazing. I love them. But yeah, for this one, it starts off with just a nice little bit of sweetness. What I would say about this, from what I remember of the Augustiner Dunkel, this one isn't quite as dark in its caramel notes. This one leans a little bit more towards the biscuity side of sweetness. You do get a little bit of toasty character just on the back end of it, but this one for me is a little bit sweeter and lighter than the Augustiner one from what I remember. But it's a really, really lovely beer, this. So yeah, as I always say, just, you know, when you get these beers, just session them and enjoy them. So yeah, when you take this beer in, I was saying, you get this nice kind of slightly bready malt base, and that just blankets the middle of your tongue. As the flavour progresses a bit, you can pick up, there's a little bit of that kind of cereally, sort of grainy thing going on with the beer. And it just pushes its way out as you go further on, but then you can feel right in the middle of your palate, there's that sweet caramel in there. There's a little tiny bit of darkness to the brown sugar. Like I said though, not as dark as the Augustiner from memory. But there's a nice kind of sweet biscuity character as well. You can feel that slightly grainy note just pushing its way towards the front of the tongue too. But overall, you know, everything in this beer just goes together really, really quite well. All the German beers I always find, when it comes to the Helles and the Dunkel, it's all about how the flavours kind of blend together. And even if you go to the Doppelbock and things like that, the German beers are always just about how these flavours go together. I mean, the Doppelbock is a little bit more punchy, and as is the Rauch beer and stuff like that. But these Dunkel and Helles beers, they're quite subtle, but they're just meant to be sessionable and have a nice blend of flavour. And this one, you know, it does exactly that. You can't complain about this beer at all. But yeah, really, really good stuff. I definitely need to do a review of the Helles one for you on the channel now as well. But I really, really quite like this beer. So in terms of the hoppy side of things, in the back corners of your palate, you pick up a little bit of that earthiness that I was talking about, and it's that stereotypical kind of German noble hop earthiness that comes out of this one. As you come further forward, you can feel the earthiness just pushing its way forward a little bit, and then it quite quickly changes to be just that nice typical floral character that you get. It's got a little bit of spiciness to it, and as you go round the front curve of the palate, a little bit of that floral character follows it, but then it becomes lighter and almost a little bit more kind of lemongrassy. Now, I don't think lemongrass is right for this, just kind of a regular sort of grassy flavour to this one. But it just all goes together really quite well. If you go just behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you're going to get a little bit of these kind of red fruity notes coming out of the beer, but there's not too much in this one. It's just a very slight kind of candied red fruit ester that comes out of the beer, and it's just a more kind of subtle thing in the aftertaste. But yeah, you'll see what I mean. Just pay attention to that little oily bubble behind the front curve of your palate there, and if you just pay attention to that, actually, you will see what I mean, that there's a little bit of darkness to the brown sugars. And as I was saying, I've said it a couple of times in the video, this one isn't quite as dark as the Augustiner from what I remember, and this is what I like, is when you go around these kind of traditional breweries in Munich, all the beers do have their little quirks. You can start to say, oh right, you know, this one's a little bit darker, this one's a little bit lighter, that one's a little bit more biscuity. That's what I really love about this kind of traditional beer scene that you have in Munich. And you know, some of the craft beers that are coming up in Munich these days are really pretty damn good as well. But you know, this is a German classic, it's a Munich classic. So if you haven't tried it already, have a go at it. And if you get to go to the Hofbräuhaus, you know, have a schnitzel, some chips, some dark beer sauce that will be made with this. Really, really good stuff. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one then, you know, it's mid-bodied. It's got quite an oily character to this one. I think this one's a little bit oilier, or more oily, sorry, than some of the other Munich Dunkels that I've had. It's really, really quite nice. The carbonation on this one is quite moderate. It does have that typical German smoothness that you expect. It leans more towards the malty side of this one, as you would expect with a Dunkel, and there's a good balance between the kind of darker flavours actually and the sweetness, although I would say it leans towards the sweetness. It's almost got a little bit of an almost butterscotchy flavour as you go into the aftertaste, which is quite interesting. The hops, it's not too high in terms of IBUs. Again, you wouldn't really expect that, but you do get a little bit of bitterness around the edge of your palate, and there's just a tiny little bit of that sort of candied red fruit ester. It does remind me of those kind of the little heart-shaped sweets that you get in the Haribo Star Mix. It just has a little bit of that about it. But overall, you know, it's a really pretty damn awesome beer, and from one of Munich's big breweries, you know, you wouldn't expect anything less. The German beers are always very, very good quality. So yeah, if you haven't tried this beer already, have a go at it. You know, if you're into German traditional beer, this is a really, really damn good one. As I said, I really love the Munich Dunkels and the Hellas's, of course, as well. They're really, really lovely beers, and I'm glad that I was finally able to review this one for you here on the channel. And I do promise you, I will return to Hofbräu in the near future, and I will try and review some of the other Munich Dunkels for you on the channel as well. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Do check out all my usual social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below if you've tried it yourself. And do let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Munich and from Hofbräu München, and I'm sure I will return to these guys in the fairly near future. So until the next time, it's Slangy just now, and we'll catch you guys very soon. The Hofbräu Dunkel from Hofbräu München, one of the traditional Munich breweries. Until the next time, Slangy just now.